Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian, and today I'm taking my review and look at Age of Vikings by Chaosium Inc. A few weeks ago, they asked me whether I wanted a copy of this, and if you've been on the channel for any time now, you'll know that Vikings is by far my favourite genre, well, historical sort of setting that you can have. I do love the D100 Chaosium basic rules. Massive fan of Call of Cthulhu, so this is going to just be one of those really quick reviews where I go, it combines two of the best things: Vikings, Chaosium basic system. Go out and buy it, or well, yeah, But you know me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the book so you can sort of see my feelings, and I'll take you through page by page so you can sort of decide for yourself whether this is for you. Because I am biased, I'm going to say it again. I love Vikings, I love Chaosium Inc, I love Call of Cthulhu. So all three things in this I should like. There's a couple of wrinkles which I'll take you through when you get to the book. But before we get into that, where can you pick up the book? So it's available a few places. Obviously, there's a variety of retail places, but it is available on Chaosium Inc.'s website. So here we've got the Age of Vikings here. And you can get 3 different copies from them direct. You can get the leatherette version, which I'm sad they didn't send me now. I don't mean it like that. The basic cover here, I say basic, the standard cover, and you can get it in PDF. If you want the PDF is also available at DriveThruRPG. I'll put my affiliate link in for it in there as well. So if you are going to get just the PDF and you don't want to go direct to Chaosium Inc, please do consider using my affiliate link. And obviously, I just want to thank everyone that is using my affiliate link, because I don't know who's using it, but thank you for that. Right, let's just get over straight into the book, because this is going to be a longish video, because the page count for the book is coming in at 314 pages. So it is a complete standalone book. You don't need to go and get any of the books alongside it, okay? So I'm just going to start here with the front cover that is going to... The PDF version, I'll be honest, doesn't look as good as the physical version, because the physical version is I don't know what it's called when it sort of shines. I'm not a technical person, but the words for the Viking actually stands out. Is it embossed? I'm not sure. But it all does say the quality of the book, as you'd expect from Chaosium, is actually amazing. But what I'm going to do is take you through the PDF version so you can sort of see it page by page and make up your own mind. But I'm going to start with the front cover. And I've seen other comments about this. It's not my style of art. It's a style of art. Let's put it that way. But when I actually really looked at it, what I did miss was this big creature in the background, and more importantly, the flames on the sword here. So it instantly jumped out at me that this is not going to be a standard Viking setting. It's probably going to be a little bit, mythology inspired. And the good news is the book's got you covered. If you want non-mythology, it's got all the rules and the separation out for it. So it's another big tick in the box for me. It's written by Pedro Zilvani, I think. It's not that I think, it's just I'm not sure whether I pronounced it correctly. And we've got some additional writing here from Jason Terrell, Sandy Peterson, Ken Rolson, and the incredible Greg Stafford, who wrote Pendragon, and a variety of other Chaosium books. But I was quite surprised that Greg was involved in the writing for this, but then as I got into the book, maybe he did, but there's a lot of it in here. Well, not a lot, but there's definitely a good homage to Pendragon, and Pendragon is always up there on a great thing, and I'll show you that when we get to the book. The bits I think are the sort of heavily sort of Pendragon influenced bits, because Pendragon does some great things. But starting off with the contents, it's all hyperlinked, which is good. So welcome to Vikings, which is your background, character creation, and then game systems. Like maybe the wrong way around for me. I kind of like a little bit of game system to know how to play the game before I pick what I'm going to do with my character. But I'm more experienced with the system, so it didn't bother me. But I think some people might be, hold on, if I'm going to create a character, I'd like to know at least the basics of how it runs. There is a little bit in Welcome to Age of Vikings. We're then going to go through the skills, combat system, a credible seafaring system section there. Life in the Viking, which is going to look at, being a Viking. Law and government, because they've been quite strict on the laws and how that works, which is good. Also, there's a sort of mini game in there, which I really appreciate. I'll explain when we get to it. Religion, as you'd imagine, is quite there's quite a bit in religion. Passion and reputations and status, which are sort of more background traits and things that your character should take into account, or especially the players when they're creating the characters. An amazing section on Rune Magic. The Seidur Magic is pretty good. Well, actually, the Seidur Magic section is really good. It's just that the Rune Magic section, in my opinion, is bloody exceptional. We're then going to go through the Chronicles of the Ages and the Traveller's Guide. So these are sort of hints and tips for campaigns. So there's no campaign as such in here, but what they do incredibly well is give sort of maps of the land and then adventure hooks, which is, for me, the way I prefer it. We've then got a chapter on hidden people, which, because it's a bit of a secret, I'm going to skip through that so you can go and discover it yourself. 30 pages of Bestiary, and the Bestiary is good because it talks about normal historical normal humans. Then it's got mythological creatures and normal monsters, and then other sort of stat blocks for other things as well. So it does mean that if you want to go straight, normal historical Vikings, you can do that. If you want to bring in the mythology, you can do that as well. We've got Between Adventures, which this is the Greg Stafford homage section, which it's my well, it's not my favourite part of Pendragon. It's the big bit I really love about Pendragon, and there's some of that in here. And then we've got an adventure, which is always good. And then you're into the glossary and bibliography and index at the back. Layout of the book, as in sort of page layout, I really like, other than it's a little bit small in the font that they've used. So I find it difficult, but again, I think this is me, old man eyes. I probably need more pairs of glasses every few years than I go into. But throughout the book, you're going to have these 3 amazing little boxes. So these brown ones will give examples of play, and there's plenty of them. More books should use this. Variations of rules, which allows you to expand on the rules. Talks about culture and, more importantly, the bits to drop out or include, whether you want to go mythological game or not. And then lots and lots of examples of how the rules work. So examples of rules, example of play, variations, great. First bits here is pretty much the important bit. So there's no kings and queens and nobility. So, all you care about is really about your family and law. Honor and blood oaths are incredibly important. Magic and monsters are in here. This is the bit that says you can drop them out. Raiding and adventure is part of everyday life for being a Viking. And over here, it talks about the word Viking. As we've learned more about the culture. Viking doesn't necessarily, Viking was actually more of a verb, not necessarily a noun all the time. So it's part of what they called it in accuracy. This little box here, I'm not going to go through every little box, but this is more the setting. So this little box just sort of goes, it is supernatural. You can sort of drop it out if you want to. And it's not a full, accurate, historical retelling. The world as well, I probably should have said earlier, you're based in Iceland. It's all around the Vikings in Iceland and, the discovery of Iceland and there. So it's not really based in sort of Denmark, Norway, and what can't I think of it? Finland, isn't it? Sorry, Sweden as well. I've got really good friends that live in Sweden. Can't believe I missed that out. So an overview of Vikings. I like this. Repetition is good for me, and hyperlink. So again, it just takes you through what's in the content, but a little bit of a few lines to go through. And as a dyslexic, I really appreciate, because repetition is a very good way of getting things into my head. So I'm just going to say this from the outset. Other than the font, but I did read this off my iPad. It's an incredibly easy book to read. There aren't many books, especially at 314 pages, because to get to a review, I tend to read a book 2, maybe 3 times, and then come back, make further notes. And this has been absolutely joy to go through start to finish all the times that I've done it. So we've got a bit more content. We're going to talk about role playing, how games work, etc. Okay, and then we've got a few pages here of examples of play, some glossary, what does campaign means, fumbles. This is really good section, the type of dice you're going to use, how D4 use, experienced games master. The good thing is you can just kind of skip through. New players, really good, because this is standalone, so you don't need any of the other products either. We're getting into chapter 2, character creation. Character creation, nice and simple, 10 steps. Name, nicknames, then you're going to work out in your passions, your family history, amazing section on family history, characteristics and attributes, skills, devotions, that's your gods, bit more about your family, your wealth and equipment, what sort of land have you got, what type of, I'll show you when we get there, and then distinctive features. So here we go with names, so masculine and feminine names, and you're going to have an area of nicknames. You can pick them yourself or randomly roll them. Passions are, you're going to have 3 starting passions: honor, loyalty and love, and they all start at 60%. So it's actually probably a good segue into how the rules work. If you're not aware of Chaosium games and the basic system, how this works is it's a D100 roll under. So you'll get 2 D10, one's a 10, one is a unit. So the first one will roll, and that will roll anything from 0 up to a 90. The second one will roll from a 0 to a 9. So if you rolled a 7 and a 9, that's 79, okay? Just thought of better throw that in there because not everyone watching this might be aware of how the system works. But each of these, they're going to start at 60%. So this, as you can imagine, that's quite a larger percentage. So they are, and you're going to add to this as well. Family history is where it starts to get interesting. Not going to go through it into sort of finer details, but this, you're going to pick a significant family member, grandparent or anything. Reminds me very much of is it RuneScape? What kind of RuneQuest? And this basically, you're going to take one of your significant grandparents, and you then will roll D20s to determine, how they got in battles, how they feel about things, and it's going to change some of your statistics or your attributes. This game, it's going to give you some skills and also a better reputation. Timeline here, just at the bottom. So the game is going to take you from the 700s. Not your grandparents, obviously, to 977, where the game is based. And then we've got an example of layouts of the character sheet, and then more family history. So there's several pages of this, and it just gives you an example of the family history for grandparents, father, the character itself, and then some bonuses to any stats you're going to get. Tributes, there are, I think it's 8, isn't it? Strength, constitution, size is your physicality, dexterity, ability to sort of dodge and do ranged attacks, intelligence, power, new attribute here, wild, which is the ability to influence fates, which we'll come on to in combat and variety of the sort of deity stuff, and then finally charisma. There are some other stats that come from a combination of things. So like movement rate will come from a combination of dexterity and other things, and magic points comes off your power, and variety of hit points. So this section is just going to flavor it out there. Reputation, all characters are going to have a reputation. Some of it is driven by grandparents and parents, but obviously Vikings very much relied on their reputation. Also, your attributes are going to, so the skills are into categories. So we've got 7 different skill categories: agility skills, communication, knowledge, manipulation, mythic, perception, and stealth. And depending on certain attributes, that will either increase or decrease. And then you can see in this table the skills that are included in there as well. So that's your skills done. Oh, attributes, I should have said. Attributes are rolled. There's 3 ways of doing your attributes. You can roll them randomly. You can appoint tributes, or you can just roll them in order. So you effectively roll in 3d6 for your tributes, and they're going to range obviously from 3 to a maximum of 18. And you get 90 points if you're going to sort of do it. Devotions is you're going to pick yourself 3 gods, and you then that's going to give you a guideline of how the character is going to think about the world. So if you follow Baldur, your ideals are light, happiness, and peace. There is a sort of asterisk that basically says, realistically, you shouldn't follow Loki or Hal. Players can, but you're not going to really be trusted because they're not exactly this sort of reputable, nice gods in Norse mythology. And it's details there of how to spend your dedication points, which are going to come from your gods. The family section, whether you're married, unmarried, and how many children you've got, and variety of age. Starting wealth, which is going to be your sort of the farmland that you work, and whether it's sort of dairy farm, meat farm, the sort of your sort of money that you have. And then nice table here of distinctive features, which is going to give you things like hair colours, expressions, clothes, etc. And then, I nearly said stupidly, you come across the character sheet. It wouldn't be a problem if you came across the character sheet here, but there isn't one at the back of the book. No, always put character sheets at the back of the book, because I want to be able to find it. I don't want to have to scroll through a book to page 42 to find a character sheet. When I pick up a book and I get into character creation, first thing I do is I go to the back of the book, have a look at the character sheet. Does it look familiar? It just gives me an idea of how the game's going to play off the character sheet. So this is your character sheet you're going to need. It is in here, but it's tucked away on page 42, which... and then you're going to get your farm record sheet as well. And then the location, your farm on Iceland. We've got 6 ready-to-play characters, which is great that they're right next to the character sheet, because it does mean you've got some reference points for weapons and skills, etc. So you get an idea of how it works and sort of the passions here. So, for example, like his honour started at 60. He's actually got it up to 90%, so he's going to be quite onerous. And there are rules in there on how the passions affect things as time goes on, and family and stuff, because you can actually use them in combat, which is quite interesting. So we've got 6 NPCs. They do tie very much into the starting adventure at the back of the book, so you can just use those if you want to. The game systems, chapter 3, talks about real-time, narrative time, full turn. So a full turn is 5 minutes, which is 25 combat rounds. A combat round is 12 seconds. And then campaign time is quite important. Again, this feels much like Pendragon to me, because it talks about generally 1 adventure occurs per season, and there's 2 seasons per year. So your season is adventuring, and you go and do whatever you adventure, and then you come back and you get your off-season or second season technically, and that's where you do the sort of family stuff, get your experience, whether you have children, marry, all that will come on, which is, in my mind, very much sort of Pendragon, the Greg Stafford sort of homage to. Skills and ability time, so it's just details on a few skills and how to use them. One of the complexities that we're going to get in this is there are sort of... so standard pass rate is going to be your skill, and you're going to multiply... Sorry, for your characteristics, because obviously you think they're only going to go up to 16 or 18 in general. So there's going to be elements where you're going to have to multiply them by potentially up to 5 if you're going to do a simple action to roll under. You might want to sort of calculate those and put them on, but there isn't anywhere on the character sheet where you can actually just put them down. But it's quite a small character sheet with a long box here for the characteristics, so you could quite easily work it out. There is a little chart that we're going to see here, which just helps you out, because you get crits, specials, and successes, failures, and fumbles. It's general. A crit is a 0-1 to 0-5, and a fumble is always 0-0, which is 100 in this game, not 0, down to 96. And it just talks about the impact of that. There are some sort of times where you're going to have a PAL versus PAL, which is your magical ability. So if you're doing a contested roll, and then it talks about how you have to beat people with contested rolls, etc. Damage is cool and lethal. So random d20 when you hit someone. In general, to hit someone, you're rolling under your weapon skill, whatever that weapon may be. And if you hit them, roll d20 and get the hit location. Depending on how much damage you do will have different impacts, whether it's leg, abdomen, chest, arm, or head. And if you double damage, it can incapacitate arms. If you triple damage, their arms gone. And obviously, if you do triple damage to the head location, you're going to need a new character. Healing is quite slow, as you can imagine, and dangerous, but you can have magical healing in the game. And there, encumbrance rules are all in here. Alcohol rules, as you imagine, Vikings and Norse people liked their drinking. There's rules in here for drinking contests, rules in here for chases, drowning, exposure, asphyxiation, a whole page on freezing, almost freezing to death, falling damage, putting out fires and fires, throwing objects is in here, the weather and wind, because sort of frigid north is quite cold, and there's not really a lot of protection from there. Chapter 4 is skills. Good thing is I can blast through this because skills are just skills. One of the big things you're going to get with some of the skills, though, is they will either have this, which will say dex, jump times 3. So that just starts at your dexterity times 3. And others have got a number. So, for example, Dance here has got a 10. So that's everyone just starts at 10%. Obviously, your tribute is going to move that up or down. I just want to sort of focus quickly on the mythic skills because I think, well, I know I would. I'm going to be wanting to play one of the sort of more magical people. So in the mythic skills, it's got this go under the cloak, which everyone starts at 10%. You're not going to want to ignore this one because that is how you get your magical points back as you're casting them. And you can do things like prophecy, see into the future. Rune Magic, Seidur Magic are the two you're going to need, as well as sort of worship here. Then you know, a variety of perceptions. Whole chapter then on chapter 5 on combat. I've pretty much covered the combat section, but it has got nuances here for things like parrying, critical parrying, doing damage to weapons as well, and then as well as some fumble tables and the impact of what happens when you do a critical, so like double damage, etc. All the weapons are in the combat section, which I like. I do like the fact they are in here. And we've got this named war gear. So Vikings, well, even back then, people were encouraged to name their weapons. So, for example, a sword that scored a critical hit that severed an opponent's leg in a single blow could be named Leg Cutter. Encourage the players to do this. It's a real, and some idea of some names as well is in there. We've then got armor section, as you imagine, battle tactics, shield wall. You couldn't have a Norse sort of setting without shield walls in here. You can subdue characters if you want. You can. And then we're straight into chapter 6, which is seafaring and ships, which is your sort of Viking bit, which I really appreciate this because it talks about building the ships, the size of the ships, the amount of people that you can carry, but not only Viking long ships, it does include sort of the large cog ships for carrying things and merchant ships in here as well. And it's all the travelling times you'd imagine, sailing fumbles, ship disasters, as well as a nice section for combat, as well as a character sheet for your ship, which again isn't at the back. Chaosium Inc. Put them all at the back of the book. I think it's just a sensible place to put it. And then we are in Life in the Age of Vikings, which talks about the geography, how farms work, setups of farms, social rankings, then spends a bit more time looking at the honour and marriage and infidelity rules and what happens if you do cheat to your belongings and clothing and everything you're going to need from the background, then as well as what, the months and sort of special months names. I always struggle with these. Warhammer does this as well. Let's call the months a different name, which is great for the setting, but really difficult for me. This is a really good bit here, the Viking raids, because your characters are going to want to go off and raid. And you've got different rules here for risk and reward, determine on the size of the hamlet or village or metropolis that the players are attacking, as well as some tables that are going to change the sort of impact of how easy or difficult it is, as well as the sort of rewards and lose table. Law and government is good in chapter 8. So this talks about duels, it's the impact of, again, infidelity, people sort of breaking the rules, stealing stuff, etc. And then it's got a little game here. I cast it as a mini game, which is covered. You actually get to do this in the pre-written adventure right at the end of the book. And this just talks about the legal stages. We've then got sort of 10 pages on religion, sort of breaks down the gods and what they do, as well as a table. Weirdly, I was talking to my wife about this. Three of my children's names appear in here because of middle names, variety of stuff, because I've been a fan of Norse for a long time. It talks about religious festivals and then the impact of Christianity and the sort of the Christian mercenaries that I'm going to say came. Some of them were taken, but yeah, says because eventually the downfall of the Vikings, or the end of the Vikings, was their sort of move over to Christianity. But this is 977, so we've still got 90 years until the end of the Vikings. All the player characters will have gone by then. Passions, reputations, and status. This just explains more details about the passions. So things like fear, hate, loyalty, family, love, how the players will work and use these. Because you do get to use them. I think it was in the combat section. There's a bit where if it gives an example where if you're out in the woods and you come back and someone's attacking your homestead, you can use your love passion, and if you pass that roll, you actually get a +20 bonus to the combat for that section. So it really sort of works that through. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then my favorite section in here is the amazing Rune Magic section. And what I love about this is you're basically, I'm trying to word this well. So there are 24 runes in the game, and it's divided into 8 runes. So that each player knows 8 to start with, and as you get more experience, you're going to know more runes. But each rune is going to do up to 3 different magical abilities, okay? And the more runes you cast, the more power that you get to spend, but the more of those 3 abilities you can pick from. And I'm a big fan of Ars Magica. I'm a big fan of allowing players to pick and use their own magic. So you don't have a set magic. There's no magic table in here. There's no list of spells or list of runic spells, but it breaks down each of the runes. Okay, so you technically pick 3 that you've got. So, for example, we'll pick Fee here, might be pronounced. And the effect of this, so you're going to cast 3 runes, and then the other 2 do runic stuff, which is sort of, you kind of have to have them. But for this one, you can either give a player +4 to the con, +30 to animal, or +30 to farm. Not the greatest examples, I appreciate, but all of these runes are going to have 3 different things. As a general, add to skills, add to attributes, or add to damage. But it's going to allow the players to pick and choose what they want. And also then there are some exact examples on here. The players can pre-make the runes and sort of put them and then put them onto some bone or wood and have them with them. If they want to cast them in combat, I'll just scroll it back. I think you spend the first round sort of preparing your rune, and then the second round you can actually talk about, you sort of do the chant. So you basically inscribe it into something. You put blood on it, which is your first action. Then you do your cantation or chant, and then you cast it. So you can't do it instantly in combat, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant section, especially because you can cast up to like 6 runes, which then do 4 different things in the same thing. You're going to burn through your magic points. We're then on to Seidur Magic, which is, so it's slightly different. So this is again sort of free format. I do like what this does, but it's not as I just like runes, and I love the thought of actually player characters actually having runes and playing with them. But this one is going to be the same sort of situation for the players. They need to pick 3 different types. So they're going to pick the magical duration, so how long the spell's going to last for, how long the distance, so how far away the person is, whether they're sort of line of sight or a single day's ride away, right? And then how long the magical effect will how strong the magical effect is. So, and the players can pick and choose that. And again, it then just gives you some examples of, if you're going to cast it against mind, the characters. So you cast it against, you cast it against the mind, body, or spirit. And it just gives you then examples of each of them. And then you've got a magical character sheet here for, your magical points you spend. Don't blow through your magical points because, as you can see here, it's going to send you to sleep for a while. You can have both Rune Magic, and Seidur Magic. It talks about it very early on, where Rune Magic was predominantly a masculine thing, and Seidur Magic was more feminine. But it kind of chucks that out very early on and goes, it doesn't matter. Just let the players do whichever one they want to do. So that's all you. 2 really good magic sections. I'm hoping I've explained the Seidur Magic and made it sound as good as it is. It's just that runic magic, for me, is considerably more interesting and fun. We're then just into the Chronicles of Times of the Vikings, and this is going to take them back from the sort of 700s all the way through here. to 977, which is where it's actually set. Traveler's Guide is going to give you a map of Iceland, and all of these boxes in here, and I think there's over 40 of them. These are just adventure hooks, which is perfect for me. So here's your map of Iceland. Oh, I probably should have said right at the start, the inside cover of the actual physical book is this map on the front and back inside. It's really nice. And the book does actually come with a giant poster that you can just flop out on the table in front of the player. So that's included in the physical book. But here you've got the map and you've got different areas. So, you know, Icefjord Deeps and stuff. And as you go through, it'll have a mythological thing, so myth-wise what happened in the area, basic description of the main bay, and then a main bay adventure seeds. So you've got this through the whole of the island, and there are lots. It then goes, do you know what, here's your Iceland in the top here. We're then going to just do the history of most of sort of Western Europe, all the way through Finland, you know, through Russia, down into France and the Holy Roman Empire. And it just breaks down a little bit of what's going on, idea of names, etc. in here for, you know, Ireland, Mon, Normandy, Scotland. And then we've got a chapter on hidden people, which I'm going to skip over. And you can go and discover exactly what the hidden people are. But they are people that are do or do not live in Iceland. That you know, they found that, and it just details a really interesting history of them. Bestiary section like this is 30 pages of, you know, it just breaks down initially, so you know they're all sort of mortals, and then we've got, you know, different like Norse speakers, gods, servants, not actually gods but godi, thralls, traders and warriors. We then get sort of mystic folk in here, all the way from elves, dwarfs and the giants and merfolk and seal skins, which I've never heard of, and trolls. Then beasts. So the beast section is, as you can imagine, standard beasts. So sort of, you know, dog, eagle, deers, etc. And then we get into the weirder stuff. So the Durga, I think that is, so, you know, sort of undead zombies, this really evil fallen raven, this quite scary looking sort of vixen fox type creature, as well as this, you know, the seal mother. And then you get the horrors, which are basically more, I think all of them are aquatic. So we've got like the kraken here, ox whale, and this weird looking mouse whale. Don't know what's going on with that. NPC, so if you're going to, is nice sort of tables and charts here to put the NPCs down. And then we get the wonderful in-between adventures and this amazing piece of art here. So I'd say you've got 2 seasons technically in the year. Adventure, go out and do stuff. Second season, you're at home. So you're going to be making experience rolls. This is where the player's going to get more experience. Skills can go over 100, and it just explains the impact of that. If you want to train, you can pay for training to get better. You can do research. You can increase your characteristics. And then you've got this mandatory section of victory sacrifice, which is going to be worship, resolve family circumstances, Valmy, I think, production, check for aging, make family rolls, and then read the omens. And as you imagine, you know, depending, so you do a little bit on your worship to try and replenish your devotion points. The family circumstances, you know, did the farm, well, you weren't there, so you left people to work your farm. Do you get an abundance of food, or is there going to be a shortage of food? And production, and you know what sort of resources wash up, and fishing, variety of other stuff that goes in there. You then got some sort of aging effects, depending on how old you are, will determine whether your attributes start going down. Family roles, you know, does your wife, or depends whether you're a female, you know, are you pregnant? Do you manage to give birth to a child? Does that child survive? Which that bit was in Pendragon. We've then got, you know, other family events and blessings, etc. Then finally, we are into the adventure, which I'm not going to spoil. The adventure is very short. It's not, but I think you probably did maybe 2 or 3 sessions, because so it's only about 8 pages. But what it does is it sort of encompasses the chase rules, the lore rules, bit of combat, everything that's in the book. It's like a starter's guide to teach the players on how to do it, and also the games master on how to do it. It breaks it down. Huge glossary here, which I really appreciate, and then a bibliography and a really good and in-depth index. And then that's it. We are at the back of the book. So yeah, it's amazing. Other than I say, you know, the character sheets and a little bit font for old man eyes. I think this is possibly the best, and I've got a lot of Viking setting books, but I do love Chaosium. But it's very well. There's a little bit of wrinkles on the layout, but what I mean when I say layout, as in it's nice, easy to read. The examples that it gives throughout the book are really helpful for the players. It's if you've ever sat with someone that constantly reaffirms your understanding of something, you know, they go, "You did you get that? Yeah. Does that make sense?" You know, that sort of person. Which, you know, it's quite a good sales skill. That in this book, I'm sort of pointing at it on my shelf. You can't see why I'm doing that, but this is utterly brilliant. Let's see if I can get the giant map out, just so you can kind of see how large that map is. It's nice big triple. Is that quadruple A4? I think, which you can nicely throw in the thing. And then we've got. So you've got the map on the inside covers of the book. I'm not very good at doing this mirror wise, but I'll get better one day. I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you, Chaosium, for sending me this. I'm going to do a top list of I've been meaning to do a top sort of. I think I'm on about 9 different Viking books, so I probably can get to 10 now of Viking setting books that people should buy. But I might have to leave it a while now, because this is one and truly jumped up to the top. You know, like Svenland, I really love the setting, but it uses 5th edition. And this, because it's also not quite traditional, because it's based in Iceland, it just is. For me, it's slightly more interesting because it covers a different area. Because nearly every Norse book that I've got, it's either a completely made up Norse type setting, or it's always what I would class as sort of central Scandinavia. You know, your Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, and Norway. Where this, I think, having this separate island, you know, you have got that secret chapter, which say is good, but also if you don't want the mythology, you don't have to. Character sheet, yes, I find it weird that the character sheets and the ship character sheets and the farm are sort of, they're not randomly dispersed in the book, but they're not. It doesn't easily tell you where to find them, and it doesn't have them all in the back of the book, which to me, just go and put them in there. But do I recommend Age of Vikings by Chaosium Inc? Yes, and obviously Chaosium Inc, I did say from outset, they did send me this. They didn't ask me to review it. They haven't paid me for this. But a free copy of a book is a stunning book, and hopefully, maybe, yes, see, you can see the sort of shininess on the man there, and but it's pride and joy for me. If you've liked this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Go buy this if you like Vikings, if you like Vikings lore. Even if you don't think you're ever going to get round to playing this for a long time, get it before it sells out, I say. Amazing. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.